Hello, I'm Graham Fitch and I'm coming to you from Steinway Hall in London, and I'm going to be talking for Pianist magazine about how to manage repetition in practice. And we all know that when we practice, when we're learning a piece, or even when we're maintaining a piece, there's a certain amount of repetition that's involved in that. And the trick is to vary the way we repeat so we don't habituate. And habituation simply means when the brain says, been there, done that. And instead of thinking about the music or what we're doing, we're thinking about the wine we're going to open after dinner or something like that. We're not really concentrating on what we're doing. And if we're not concentrating on what we're doing, we tend not to absorb what it is that we're doing. So we need to focus and we need to concentrate. And the first thing I'm going to suggest that you think about is it's something I call the feedback loop. It's before you do anything in your practice, plan what it is you're going to do. It might be, I'm going to play the first 16 bars at half the speed, or I'm going to try this phrase out now without the pedal to see how it feels without the pedal, or I'm going to work on my left hand alone for this section, whatever it may be. So we have a plan before we start. Then we play, and then afterwards we judge, we evaluate what it was that we did. Was what we played, did it match what we intended to play? Were there any mistakes? And I mean careless mistakes, things that can happen that we need to correct. And what we do is, before we do the next repetition, we feed back into the plan stage exactly what it was that we need to focus on in the next playing. So that's a very direct way of making significant improvements, rather than just hit and miss, rather than just, oh, play it again and hope that it sounds better. We want to know exactly in what ways we want it to sound better. So that's the feedback loop. Now, I'm a very great fan of the 20-minute practice session. It may be 30 minutes, but a short task-specific practice session that we've decided is we're going to focus on one activity, and then we can take a little break after that. It might be a 2 or 3 minute break, it might be a 5-minute break, whatever it is that you want. But the task could be, again, no pedal or the left hand alone, half speed, whatever it may be. And I've chosen the C-sharp minor nocturne of Chopin, the posthumous nocturne that sounds like this. This is the introduction. It absolutely needs the pedal. And then this gorgeous main section. So I'm reveling in my pedal here. So what I've decided to do for my 20-minute practice session is to practice it without the pedal. And it's not going to sound anywhere like it did just then. It's not going to sound gorgeous as such, but what I'm aiming for is to make it sound as good as possible, to aim for me to control here as well as I possibly can without the help of the pedal. And what happens then is when I go back to the pedal, everything feels a whole lot easier and a whole lot better. So let me just demonstrate. See, my foot wants to immediately go there. It's a reflex, the foot going to the pedal, but let me try without. And I hear so much better. I hear the balance is so much better. And I'm aware there that I can't join everything in these chords. So I have to lift my second finger in order to put it from the E to the D sharp if I'm using that fingering. That's fine, I just know that, I'm just aware of that. And then can I play this pianissimo without my left pedal? I wasn't happy with my balances there. See, because that's actually quite a bit harder to do. That was better. That's quite a bit harder to do without the pedal. One feels a little naked without the pedal. And then here, can I shape those beautiful arches in the left hand? Can I really hear falling, drooping at the end of the phrase without my pedal? So that's a task-specific 20-minute or so practice session, working on one thing and nothing else. Now, another thing that's really good to do, because a lot of music has, when we're practicing, say, left hand or right hand alone, the left hand is often not the hand that we're going to end up listening to actively. And yet, in this example from Tchaikovsky's Autumn, the left hand is really full of interest. I'm taking it from the second section where the left hand has the tune. that section there. Now what I would do, of course I can practice the left hand by itself, and I should. I should work a lot on controlling my sound here. But there's another way I can practice this left hand, which is to take two hands. Now you may think, well, why on earth would he want to take two hands to that when one hand is supposed to play it? Well, playing it with two hands makes it very easy for me to create the sounds that I want, because my right hand is playing the melodic top and the left hand is playing the bottom harmonies. What I'd do is I'd alternate the two-handed version with a one-handed version. I don't like the accent I'm putting on that D. You see, I'm using my feedback loop now. I didn't like the accent I put on my D in the second bar, so I'm going to go back again and do it again. This time, my focus is on that one thing, the second bar. Can I control? Yes, miles better, although I say so myself. Yeah, so that's the feedback loop in action. I didn't plan that. That was something that just happened spontaneously. So then alternate two-handed, one-handed, two-handed, one-handed, until the one-handed version sounds just as good as the two-handed version. And you'd be surprised how often you can use that in your practice. Now the other thing I'm going to show you here is the quarantine spots, or Q spots for short, which is where we isolate those sections of our piece that cause us to stumble and fumble. And you'll probably all recognize this. You know, it usually happens in the same places, doesn't it? You can guarantee, oh, when I get to this spot, I seem to break down most of the time. So what we do is we extract the part and work on it in a variety of different ways. So I have chosen for my example, again, a very familiar piece, deliberately chosen a familiar piece because you'll all know it. And that's the Pathetique Sonata of Beethoven, the first movement from bar 92. I'll start a little earlier. That spot there. Now, let's say I was struggling with that. What sort of processes could I go through in my practice? Well, let me just show you a few of them, and the sky's the limit. Once you've got onto this, you'll probably find that you can generate a load of various different ways of doing this, so that you don't habituate, and so that you can explore the passage in a variety of different ways. This isn't rocket science, but blocking is a very good thing to do. Playing the whole chord. Then what could I do? Maybe I could just play the outsides. This line, very useful thing to do. How about I play that line and then block the two remaining notes, and so on. Now, what I could do next is to come back to my blocks, and then I call this blocking and tapping. What I'm going to do now is to repeat the outside notes, hold on to the lower notes, or the inside notes. Now let me do that, tapping the middle fingers. And so on. And now I'm stopping before I've got to the end just to save some time. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my thumb. Maybe I'll play my thumb 4 times. For lightness. And so on. Now let me do some rhythmical variations. How about I hold on. What about if I stopped on the second note of the group? What if I stopped on the third note of each group? And then you do it on the last note of the group. I could also play each pair of notes twice. And after I've done a little bit of that, I might do some chaining. How about beat to beat chaining? See how that works? How about bar to bar chaining? And then, now if I do that daily, If I go through those processes daily for 2 or 3 days, maybe more, what will happen is when I put that back into the context of the piece, when I arrive at this spot, I can expect my fingers to fly across the keys with no effort whatsoever. And if you've got several pieces on the go, how about taking a photograph, editing it down so you can only see the spots and putting it together in a slideshow like I've done here, and just swipe through. You could do a 20-minute practice session just on your cue spots of all the pieces that you're working on. And then next week, maybe the cue spots will change. Just let me give you one other suggestion. So often in music, we've got multi-layered textures. Could be 3 voices, could be 4 voices. And a fugue, of course, is an obvious example of strict layers. But so much music is written in layers. And it's a very good idea sometimes to focus to shine a light on one particular layer of the texture. And a fugue is a great thing to have. I always suggest people have fugues in their repertoire at all times. They're always practicing something that's purely contrapuntal. I've taken a small section from the F sharp minor book 2 Bach from the 48, and let me just play it to you. It's the end of the first section. More or less homogenized sound. Let me now focus my sound on the middle voice. So I'm going to play my upper voice and my lower voice pianissimo, and I'm going to play my middle voice, I don't know, let's say mezzo forte. Fantastic for tonal control, fantastic for the ear, because I have to really listen to that line, can really hear it. Let me give you one other thought, which is counting out aloud. It's a fantastic thing to do, much better than metronome practice often. So what we do is we have to account for every beat and the subdivisions of that beat. I've chosen this famous example from Debussy, the Girl with the Flaxen Hair, and I'm going to count, first of all, the subdivisions. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... How many times have I heard people play that where they rush through that long note? They think, well, I should be playing the piano, not holding a note. So they scoot forwards and play the E flat miles too early. But if you have practiced counting out aloud, not only have you instilled a really strong sense of rhythm, it's flexible rhythm as well, because I can bend with the rubato of the music. But I've also made it more difficult for me to play, because I'm using an extra part of my brain to vocalize the counting, so that when I stop doing it, the playing feels a whole lot easier. Then I can use that extra bandwidth for maybe for listening a little bit more, or for feeling more. We don't want to be thinking too much more when we perform, but then I could count it again, just counting the main beats. Let me take a different spot. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And again, that B flat is so often very early because people don't want to hold that E flat chord long enough. So counting out aloud is wonderful. I've got 2 more suggestions, and I know I must stop after that. Transposition, really very fantastic thing to do. Transposition by ear. Quickly back to my pathétique example. Let's say I'm memorizing the pathétique, slow movement. I've got very good muscle memory now of this opening. I can even play it to you and talk to you at the same time, which I wouldn't recommend. What would it feel like if I did that by ear, a semitone higher? Much brighter. Now this completely screws up the muscle memory. I'm playing by ear. One of the best forms of ear training we pianists can do. If we're worried that we don't have a good enough ear, practice transposing by ear. You might want to do it in another key. And then just lastly, instead of doing a repetition where you play, can you do a repetition where you visualize? So it's a silent repetition. You can close your eyes, use the keyboard that we've all got in our imaginations. Can you see your hands on that keyboard? Can you see exactly the notes that you're playing? If not, back up a little bit. Which fingers are playing? This is a fantastic thing, a great discipline. Not easy to start with, but really useful. I've come to my time. I must stop. Lovely to see you, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.